All right, so get ready because we're about to take a deep dive into something pretty cool.
Okay. Okay.
So we're going to be listening in on this conversation between Hideki and Mayumi.
Who are they?
Hideki is a sculptor and Mayumi is an inspiration artist. I actually really love that term for her.
Oh, yeah.
But they have this Japanese podcast together called Hideki and Mayumi's Grilled Mackerel Radio, and it's really fascinating.
Okay, that's an interesting name for a podcast, I've got to say.
It is. It's a little bit quirky.
So what are we going to be looking at today in this deep dive?
Well, Mayumi talks about this idea of mind setting,
Yeah.
and she talks about it in a way that's not just like, positive thinking or something,
Right.
but she's really talking about it as a way to work through challenges that artists face. So like, how do you deal with a creative block? Or how do you deal with self-doubt and things like that?
I see. So like specific techniques that she uses to kind of overcome those.
Yeah, exactly. And I was just thinking, as she's describing this, it kind of reminds me of how athletes use visualization techniques to improve their performance.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Like, it's almost as if she's training her mind to stay focused and resilient and just open to new creative breakthroughs.
Yeah, and maybe some of those mental techniques could even be applied to other fields, too.
Right.
Like imagine if we could use some sort of mind-setting practice to get over writer's block.
That's a great point. Or even just like to power through a really difficult day at work.
Have you come across any like specific techniques or anything that kind of relate to this idea?
Well, I mean, mindfulness practices definitely come to mind, like
Mhm.
maybe taking a few minutes each morning to meditate or using a guided meditation app before you have to, really dive into a challenging project.
Yeah, like you said, just clearing out that mental clutter so that you
Mm.
can be more open to those creative breakthroughs.
Exactly. And it's not all about individual creativity, though. He brings up this really interesting point about how focusing too much on personal satisfaction can sometimes lead to a sort of self-centeredness.
So like we can get so wrapped up in our own goals and desires that we kind of forget about the bigger picture.
Yeah, and he really dives into the potential downsides of just being, too wrapped up in our own little worlds.
And what stands out to you about his perspective?
Well, he really focuses on how that self-centeredness can actually limit our growth in the long run.
Okay.
It's like we create these invisible walls around ourselves.
Right.
And we might miss out on opportunities to really connect and collaborate with others and make an impact.
So it's almost like we're trapping ourselves with our own desires.
Yeah, and so if focusing just on ourselves isn't the answer, then what is?
Well, that's a great question.
Mayumi offers up a pretty compelling alternative with her philosophy of contributing to the field.
Oh, tell me more about this. I'm intrigued.
So it's not necessarily about making these big gestures or striving for recognition or anything. She really emphasizes these small, often unnoticed acts of service.
I see.
So it's about anticipating needs going the extra mile, creating a positive ripple effect through your actions.
It's about thinking beyond yourself.
Exactly, and I really love that she uses the word field.
Why is that?
Well, because it can mean so many different things to different people.
Okay, I see.
It could be your workplace or your community or your family.
Right. Any space where you can contribute in some way.
Yeah, any space where you have the opportunity to contribute and make things better.
That's a great point.
And she even shares a story about someone who really exemplifies this whole philosophy during one of her art exhibitions.
Really? Oh, I want to hear about this story.
Yeah, so tell me what you think about this. Okay, so there's this person helping out at her exhibition, right?
Yeah.
And it sounds like they were just like a volunteer or something.
Okay.
But they were going like so above and beyond.
Right. What is so?
So they're making sure all the guests feel welcome.
Hmm.
They're anticipating their needs.
What?
Even like they have tissues ready,
Tissues ready for what?
like in case anybody starts crying.
Oh, like from being moved by the art.
Yeah, and Mayumi even says that she hadn't even considered that, but it
Ah.
made such a big difference in like the overall experience of the whole exhibition.
Wow. Those little things can really have a big impact, can't they?
I know, and it just makes me think like that person, they could have just stood there,
Right.
and like pointed people in the right direction.
Yeah, like just doing the bare minimum.
Yeah, but they chose to really engage.
Right, to really contribute.
Yeah, to really contribute to the field of that exhibition.
I love that.
Have you ever had an experience like that where somebody's just like small act of kindness or helpfulness really made your day?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
What happened?
I remember one time I was traveling for a conference and my flight got delayed. like super delayed.
Ugh, I hate when that happens.
I know, and I was stranded at the airport, exhausted, and
Oh.
just feeling miserable. And this woman sitting next to me, total stranger, just started chatting with me, offered me some of her snacks.
Oh, wow.
And she even shared her phone charger with me when mine died.
Oh, that's so
I
nice.
know, it was so sweet, and it really like completely shifted my mood.
Yeah.
And it just reminded me of how powerful those seemingly small gestures can be to really like brighten someone's day.
Absolutely. And it really underscores Mayumi's point about how those acts of field contribution don't go unnoticed.
Right, people are watching.
Exactly. She says the people who are really running the field, you know,
Okay.
like the ones who are paying attention,
Yeah.
they see the people who are willing to go above and beyond.
Right.
And it often leads to unexpected opportunities and growth.
It's almost like you're planting seeds.
Mm.
You might not see the results immediately,
Right.
but those acts of kindness and generosity, they kind of have a way of taking root and flourishing in ways that you might never have imagined.
Okay. I'm sold on this whole, like, contributing to the field idea.
Me too.
But I'm also wondering, like, how do we actually find those opportunities in our everyday lives? It's
Yeah.
easy to get caught up in our own routines
Totally.
and to-do lists, and we miss those chances to make a difference.
Right. So what are some practical steps we can take?
Well, I think it starts with a shift in perspective.
A shift in how?
Instead of always asking, like, what's in it for me?
Right.
We can start asking, like, what can I offer?
Oh, I like that.
It's about looking for ways to add value, to
Yeah.
be helpful, to just be a positive force in whatever space we occupy.
Makes sense. But, to be honest, some people are just better at this than others.
Yeah.
Some people just seem to naturally radiate that generous spirit,
Yeah.
you know,
Totally.
while others, maybe they need a little bit of a nudge in that direction.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you have any advice for those of us who might need to, flex our contribution muscles a bit more?
Yeah, well, I would say, first of all, don't beat yourself up if you don't feel like you're, a natural born giver.
Okay.
It's a practice. Like anything else, it takes time and effort to develop.
Yeah, that makes sense.
One thing that I think can be helpful is just to start small.
Okay. Starting small.
Yeah, just look for like simple ways to brighten someone's day.
Uh-huh.
Maybe you leave a thoughtful note for a coworker who's having a rough time, or you offer to help an elderly neighbor with their groceries or something.
Yeah, those little things really do add up.
Yeah, and it kind of goes back to Mayumi's idea that people are polished by people.
Oh, I like that.
Like we're constantly shaping and influencing each other through our interactions.
Yeah, so I guess the question is, what kind of influence do we want to have on the people around us?
Right, and that leads us to this whole other idea of being really intentional about the environments that we choose to be in.
Oh, okay.
So are we surrounding ourselves with people who, inspire us to be our best selves,
Right.
who encourage us to grow and to contribute? Or are we kind of stuck in these situations that drain our energy?
Yeah, or stifle our creativity.
Exactly. We've got to be a little bit choosy about the fields we cultivate.
Yeah, I agree with that. But being choosy can sometimes feel a little selfish.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
Like, are we only supposed to connect with people who benefit us in some way?
That's a tough question.
It is a tough question, but I think it's more about being discerning than being selfish.
Okay.
It's about recognizing that we have limited time and energy,
Yeah.
and we need to invest those resources wisely.
So how do we know if an environment is the right fit for us?
That's a good question.
Like, what are some signs that we might be in a field that's really nurturing our growth?
Well, I think it starts with paying attention to how you feel when you're in that environment.
Okay, so just tune into your feelings.
Yeah, exactly. Do you feel energized? Do you feel inspired? Do you feel supported and encouraged to be yourself?
Oh, okay. And on the flip side,
Or do you feel drained, depleted,
like you said, yeah.
and like you're constantly having to kind of shrink yourself to fit in?
Okay, so trust your gut.
Right. If a situation feels off, it probably is.
Yeah, but let's be practical for a minute here.
Okay.
Sometimes we're just, we're stuck in fields that we can't easily change.
Yeah, like a job we don't love
Yeah.
or a family dynamic that's really challenging.
Exactly.
So what can we do in those situations?
Well, we don't always have the luxury of, choosing our environments perfectly.
Right.
But even within those constraints, I think we can still find these like pockets of field contribution.
Pockets of field contribution.
I like that. What do you mean? Like maybe it's finding a supportive colleague at work,
Okay.
or seeking out a mentor in your field, or just like focusing on being a source of positivity and encouragement to the people around you.
So even if the whole field isn't ideal, you can still create these little micro fields of positivity and contribution within it.
Yeah, exactly.
Love that.
And remember, Mayumi talks about how people who prioritize contributing to the field, they tend to attract support and opportunities naturally.
It's like what you put out into the world comes back to you.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And speaking of putting things out into the world, I think it's time to give our listeners a little challenge,
Okay, a challenge. I like
to
that.
put all of this wisdom into action.
Yeah, let's empower our listeners to get out there and really contribute to their own fields.
So, listeners, we've talked about mindsetting and the pitfalls of just focusing on personal satisfaction.
Right.
And we talked about Mayumi's awesome idea of contributing to the field.
Yes.
Now we want you to think about your field,
Okay.
like your work, your community, your relationships, whatever space just feels relevant to you right now.
Goes with the challenge.
So here's the challenge. What's one small but meaningful act of field contribution that you can do this week? Something that would just genuinely surprise or delight someone.
I like that.
It could be something super simple.
Okay, give me an example.
Like maybe you leave a thoughtful note for a coworker who's been struggling.
That's nice.
Or maybe you offer to help an elderly neighbor with their groceries. Or maybe you finally reach out to that friend that you've been meaning to connect with.
Oh, that's a good one.
Or you volunteer an hour of your time to a cause that you really believe in.
It doesn't have to be a grand gesture, right?
No, not all.
It's those small things, those sparks of generosity that can just really make someone's day.
Exactly, and create that ripple effect of positivity.
Yeah, and it all goes back to Mayumi's words.
That's it.
People are polished by people.
I love that.
Like every interaction, no matter how small it is an opportunity to leave someone feeling a little bit better, a little bit more seen, a little bit more connected.
So what will your contribution be?
Yeah, let us know.
Share your ideas with us on social media, or just take a moment to reflect on, how you can bring a little more field contribution into your own world.
It's been awesome diving deep into this episode of Hideki Mayumi's Grilled Natural Radio with you.
It really has.
It's amazing how just like a simple conversation can spark so many insights, and inspire us to think differently about our own lives and our work.
And we hope you leave this deep dive feeling energized, feeling empowered and ready to make your own mark on the world.
Remember, even the smallest acts of contribution can have a huge impact.
Absolutely.
Until next time, keep those minds sharp.
Keep those contributions flowing.
And keep diving deep.